Night settles over the desolate ridges of northern China. A chilly wind whistles through gaps in the stones and makes the wild grass dance. You follow a narrow footpath up a steep incline until a shadowy rampart emerges from the fog, stretching as far as the eye can see. Lantern light flickers in the distance, casting long shadows across the brickwork. The watchtowers, square, solemn, and empty, stand like lonely sentinels. The wall's defensive openings don't face outward toward the plains. They face inward, back toward the empire itself. As you run your fingers along the weathered bricks, you feel both the heft of history and the weight of unanswered questions. Who built this wall? Why do some of its teeth point inward? What secrets lie hidden in the mortar and the mountain? The Great Wall of China is more than an icon. It is a riddle etched in stone, and tonight we descend into its mysteries. The idea of walls along China's northern frontier predates the empire itself. During the Zhou dynasty and the Warring States period, rival kingdoms constructed earthen ramparts to protect their territories from marauding horsemen. These early walls were not continuous. They were temporary lines of tamped earth and gravel, trenches and wooden palisades. They were as much symbols of autonomy as they were defensive structures. When the Qin state conquered its rivals and forged the First Imperial China in 221 BC, Emperor Qin Shi Huang sought both to secure his borders and to project the power of his new state. He ordered his trusted general, Ming to link and extend the existing fortifications. More than 100,000 soldiers and uncounted conscripts marched north, hauling baskets of soil and stone. They packed layers of earth between wooden frames, creating a compact, sloping wall that could absorb the pounding hooves of nomadic raiders. This long wall served to slow intrusions and to separate Qin territory from the world beyond. Over the centuries that followed, successive dynasties returned to the frontier. The Han extended the wall westward along the Hexi corridor to protect the Silk Road. The northern Qi and Sui repaired and rebuilt sections using whatever materials were at hand. These were not the brick and stone fortifications seen in glossy travel brochures, but pragmatic earthworks with watchtowers and beacon platforms. According to records carved on stone pillars and bamboo strips, the labor force was vast and varied. Peasant farmers were conscripted during slack seasons, soldiers were garrisoned at construction sites, and prisoners were transported under guard to the frontier. The state provided tools and rations, but not comfort. Workers slept in crude huts or caves, suffered from disease and malnutrition, and buried their comrades in the shadows of the wall. Legends later described the wall as a graveyard, but archaeological surveys have found no evidence of mass burials in the wall itself, suggesting that the dead were laid to rest nearby and their stories woven into folklore. By the 14th century, a new threat loomed. The Mongol Empire had conquered much of Eurasia, and the founders of the Ming dynasty, anxious to secure their northern border, launched the most ambitious wall-building campaign in Chinese history. Ming engineers replaced earth with fired brick and quarried stone, recruiting skilled masons alongside conscripted peasants, prisoners, and soldiers. They mixed glutinous rice soup with slaked lime to create a mortar that was both adhesive and water-resistant, bonding bricks into a nearly monolithic whole. When completed, the Ming walls snaked across mountain ridges and deserts, forming a network of fortifications rather than a single continuous barrier. Their purpose was clear: to slow cavalry raids, to provide early warning, and to assert imperial control over the borderlands. The Ming campaign transformed the wall into the monumental structure we recognize. Generals like Qi Jiguang oversaw the construction of bastions and crenellations, improving the wall's capacity to repel archers and artillery. The high parapets, sometimes built with teeth on both sides, allowed defenders to fire in multiple directions and to mount counterattacks if a section fell. Each watchtower became a node in a vast communication network. Soldiers lit signal fires to warn of approaching enemies and used the wall as a road to move reinforcements. The geometry of the wall, zigzagging across ridges, adapting to the topography, was designed for flexibility. Seen from the ground, some stretches appear to face inward because they hug the contours of mountain spines, leaving the higher parapet on the southern side. In truth, the wall's defensive line changed orientation as the landscape demanded. Other sections of the broader Great Wall system tell a different story. In Mongolia, archaeologists have traced a low earthen barrier running roughly parallel to the traditional wall, sometimes called the Northern Line or Genghis Khan Wall. This 450-mile stretch consisted of low walls and watchtowers that could not stop an army. Instead, researchers believe it was built to monitor the movement of herders and caravans, acting as a customs barrier where officials collected taxes and regulated trade. It highlights that walls were also instruments of governance. They channeled people through gates and passes where the state could watch, record, and extract revenue. The existence of such walls complicates the image of an unbroken military fortification. Instead, it reveals a mosaic of defensive, administrative, and economic structures. Meanwhile, legends about the wall's construction and purpose proliferated among the people. The tale of Meng Jiangnu tells of a woman whose husband was conscripted to build the wall. When he died from exhaustion and was buried near the work site, her grief was so powerful that a section of the wall collapsed, revealing his bones so she could bury him properly. Storytellers recited this tragic love story to criticize the brutality of conscription and the human cost of imperial projects. Such legends fed into a view of the wall as an instrument of oppression as much as a defense. In the mountains, travelers whispered about mysterious lights and ghostly soldiers patrolling the ramparts. In villages, elders warned children that the wall could swallow those who strayed too close. Over time, these tales became entangled with the wall's physical presence, making it both a monument to resilience and a backdrop for mysteries. In 1644, the Manchus breached the wall at Shanhai Pass, not by climbing over it, but by persuading a Ming general to open the gates. The Qing dynasty, founded by those same Manchus, swept into Beijing and eventually ruled China for nearly 3 centuries. With the empire's borders pushing far beyond the old frontier, the wall's strategic value diminished. Sections crumbled from neglect or were dismantled by villagers scavenging bricks. Yet the wall never disappeared from memory. Poets like Li Bai wrote melancholy verses about its lonely watchtowers. Painters depicted its serpentine silhouette in misty landscapes. Emperors and generals referenced it in proclamations to symbolize strength. In the 20th century, as China grappled with revolution and invasion, the wall again became a potent symbol of endurance. Repairs and reconstructions turned certain stretches into tourist attractions, while much of the original fabric remained weathered and wild. Some contemporary scholars and anthropologists have come up with their own theories about the wall's functions. In recent decades, fringe theorists have seized upon the wall's inward-facing crenellations and its multifaceted roles to suggest alternative histories. While these narratives lack credible evidence, they tap into a broader fascination with hidden histories and the feeling that monumental structures must hold secrets yet to be revealed. Across the internet and in shadowy corners of conspiracy forums, alternative histories of the Great Wall flourish. Believers assert that mainstream historians have covered up the wall's true origins and purpose. They see hints of a lost civilization in the wall's design and interpret its function through a lens of secrecy and suppression. The first claim posits that the Great Wall was not built by Chinese dynasties at all, but by the fabled Tartarian Empire, an advanced civilization said to have spanned Eurasia. According to this narrative, the Tartarians possessed sophisticated engineering knowledge and constructed monumental architecture across the world. Believers point to what they perceive as stylistic similarities between the walls, towers, and buildings in Europe, suggesting a global architectural language. They argue that the walls' scale, intricate masonry, and durable mortar are beyond the capabilities of peasants and soldiers, implying that an advanced people must have done the work. Their videos often show the wall's crenellations facing south, which they claim is proof the wall was intended to keep the Chinese out of a Tartarian domain to the north. They note that some Western travelers, including Marco Polo, did not mention the wall, inferring that it did not exist until a later time. Proponents weave this tale together with a broader conspiracy that a global cataclysm, often described as a mud flood, wiped out Tartaria and buried its cities. In their view, the surviving Chinese dynasties discovered the wall and adopted it as their own, later adding bricks and towers. They claim that official histories written by the victors erase the real builders from memory. On message boards, advocates share old maps labeled Tartary and note that European cartographers once used the term to describe vast swathes of Asia. They interpret this as proof of Tartaria's existence rather than a generic label for unexplored territory. They also cite architecture like star forts in Europe and the United States, insisting that these were built by the same civilization that built the wall. For believers, the absence of mainstream scholarship on Tartaria is itself evidence of a cover-up. They argue that universities, governments, and media institutions are invested in preserving a false narrative to keep people ignorant of humanity's true past. When experts point out that Tartarian theories ignore archaeological evidence and rely on misreading maps, proponents dismiss this as part of the conspiracy. In their eyes, the wall is not a Chinese monument, but a relic of a lost empire whose story has been deliberately suppressed. Another claim focuses on the wall's architecture rather than its builders. Conspiracy theorists point out that in many photographs, the battlements, the crenellated parapets used by archers, appear to face south toward the interior of China, while the northern side of the wall sometimes has a lower parapet or even no battlements at all. They argue that if the wall were truly meant to keep invaders out, the crenellations should face north. Instead, they say, the wall looks like it was designed to repel attacks coming from within China, suggesting a system of population control or even imprisonment. They show images of watchtowers with firing slits on both sides and emphasize that the wall is continuous only along certain ridges, leaving gaps elsewhere. To them, these features reveal that the wall's primary purpose was to control internal movement and keep subjects from fleeing. Believers bolster this argument by pointing to the northern line, a low earthen wall in Mongolia that archaeologists now believe was used to monitor and tax nomadic herders. They claim that if part of the Great Wall system was built for economic control rather than defense, the entire wall must share the same purpose. They also cite statements by scholars like James C. Scott, who noted that walls can serve to keep peasants within the tax-paying heartland. Although Scott's argument refers to the logic of statecraft, conspiracy theorists twist it into evidence that the wall was designed specifically to imprison the Chinese people. They bring up the fact that the wall includes gates and checkpoints, which they see as barriers to free movement rather than defensive installations. Visual evidence plays a major role in this claim. Photographs taken from certain angles show the wall hugging steep southern slopes with the crenellated side on the south. These images become central exhibits in conspiracy videos. Narrators ask, why would a defensive wall face inward? To believers, the inward-facing battlements are not an architectural adaptation, but a coded message about a hidden function, controlling or corralling the population. The third claim centers on the materials and perceived technologies used to construct the wall. Conspiracy theorists are fascinated by the sticky rice mortar found in many Ming-era sections. They assert that mixing glutinous rice soup with slaked lime to create an incredibly strong, earthquake-resistant composite mortar is evidence of either lost Tartarian science or alien assistance. They argue that because this recipe was recently rediscovered by modern chemists, ancient builders could not have conceived of it without knowledge passed down from a forgotten civilization. They also speculate that the wall incorporates geopolymer, or poured stone techniques unknown to historical Chinese masons, suggesting high-technology concrete. Further fueling this claim are reports of underground tunnels discovered near the wall. In Hebei and Shandong provinces, archaeologists have found subterranean war passages dating to the Song dynasty, complete with ventilation shafts, hidden doors, and chambers. Conspiracists conflate these passages with the Great Wall itself, suggesting that a labyrinth of tunnels runs beneath the wall, connecting secret facilities or even entire underground cities. They imagine that these tunnels were used by Tartarian or other advanced peoples to move troops and equipment unseen. Some videos claim that the tunnels housed machinery or weapons removed in antiquity by governments to hide the truth. Finally, believers question how a pre-industrial society could mobilize enough labor to build the wall without modern machinery. They point to legends like Meng Jiangnu's tears collapsing the wall as hints that mystical forces or advanced energy manipulation were involved. They suggest that because there are no surviving detailed construction manuals, knowledge of the wall's true engineering must have been suppressed. In their view, the wall's endurance in the face of earthquakes and weather implies it was built with techniques or tools beyond anything described in Chinese chronicles. Taken together, these claims paint a picture of the wall as an artifact of lost technology and suppressed history. They thrive on gaps in the record, ambiguous architectural features, and the seductive idea that official narratives hide deeper truths. For many, entertaining these possibilities is a way to challenge authority and feel part of an enlightened community. To assess them, however, we must turn to evidence and expert analysis. Scholars, archaeologists, and military historians have spent decades studying the wall's construction and purpose. Their findings offer a grounded explanation for the features that conspiracy theorists cite. Rather than a monument built by a lost empire, the wall emerges as a complex project shaped by shifting dynasties, technologies, and political strategies. Each counterpoint addresses a believer claim and explains why the evidence points toward a conventional interpretation. Historians possess a wealth of documentation about the wall's construction. Imperial edicts record the mobilization of labor. Inscriptions carved into stone tablets name the officials responsible for different stretches. Tomb pillars mention soldiers who died while building the wall. Archaeological excavations reveal layers of tamped earth in early sections, bricks stamped with the insignia of Ming workshops, and tools consistent with traditional Chinese masonry. Even the sticky rice mortar is mentioned in Ming-era building manuals and appears in other contemporary structures. These physical and textual artifacts tie the wall to the dynasties that claimed it. There is no evidence that an unknown civilization built the foundation or that Chinese builders merely added superficial layers. Furthermore, the Tartarian Empire itself has no support in the archaeological record. The term Tartary originated as a European catch-all for the vast interior of Asia at a time when maps were incomplete. It referred to disparate peoples, not a single polity. Historians note that conspiracists misinterpret decorative flourishes and 19th century fairgrounds as remnants of a lost empire. The Russian Geographical Society and mainstream scholars have dismissed Tartarian claims as pseudo-history. The absence of the wall in some travelogues is easily explained. The routes that travelers took did not pass near the frontier walls, or their accounts were lost. Marco Polo's silence says more about his itinerary than about the existence of the wall. Finally, the architectural features that believers attribute to Tartaria can be understood within Chinese design traditions. The wall's towers blend regional styles because local materials and artisans varied. Round and square towers reflect different periods and functions. The use of crenellations facing south in certain places relates to terrain, not to cultural identity. To claim that such features prove foreign construction ignores the diversity within Chinese architectural history. Occam's razor suggests we accept the simplest explanation. Chinese rulers built, rebuilt, and maintained the wall over centuries, leaving behind ample evidence of their labors. The inward-facing battlements that conspiracists highlight are an artifact of strategic flexibility, not evidence of imprisonment. Military engineers designed the wall to be defensible from multiple directions because threats could come from outside or from within during rebellions. Garrison commanders needed to recapture sections if invaders breached them. Therefore, parapets on both sides allowed archers to fire in either direction. In mountainous regions, the higher side of the ridge naturally became the outer face, and the lower side the inner face. Where slopes reversed, so did the orientation of the battlements. The wall's design adapts to topography, which is why photographs can show different orientations depending on location. The northern line's use for taxation and monitoring demonstrates the wall's administrative role, but this does not support the claim that the entire Great Wall was built solely for internal control or by another civilization. Early modern states often combined defense and economic regulation. Gates served as customs points where caravans paid duties. Passes controlled the flow of people and goods. Guard posts kept official records. Historians like James C. Scott argue that such walls help central governments retain revenue and laborers. This perspective supports a nuanced understanding of the wall's functions rather than a blanket assertion that it was a prison wall. There is no evidence that subjects were systematically prevented from leaving across the northern frontier. Rather, the state sought to manage and profit from cross-border interactions. As for visual evidence, it is selective. Many stretches of the wall clearly face north, with their highest parapets oriented toward the steppe. Others have been reconstructed for tourism, altering their appearance. The narrative that the wall is backwards collapses under closer inspection. Military manuals from the Ming period describe how garrisons were to use the wall, watch for smoke signals, maintain arrows and cannon, guard gates. Nothing in these documents suggests the wall was meant to keep peasants trapped. The inward-facing sections are best understood as part of a flexible defense network, designed to function under diverse and unpredictable conditions. Scientific analysis of sticky rice mortar has demystified its composition. Researchers found that amylopectin molecules in glutinous rice interact with the calcium carbonate in lime mortar to produce a strong and resilient matrix. This combination resists water penetration and strengthens over time, which is why walls built with it have endured earthquakes and erosion. Far from being lost technology, sticky rice mortar was recorded in Ming construction manuals and used in many buildings from the period. Its rediscovery in modern times came about because chemists sought to understand why some historical mortars lasted longer than others. The knowledge was not hidden, it simply fell out of use as industrial cement became prevalent. The underground passages discovered in Hebei and Shandong are part of a network of war shelters dug during the Song dynasty. They consist of brick tunnels, ventilation shafts, and chambers used for hiding civilians and storing supplies during periods of warfare. They are not physically connected to the Great Wall. While they demonstrate the ingenuity of Chinese military architecture, conflating them with the wall itself is inaccurate. There is no archaeological evidence of hidden machines, secret rooms, or advanced devices within the wall's masonry. Explorations of collapsed sections and restorations have revealed only the expected rubble, bones of animals, and occasional artifacts from garrison life. Finally, the human labor required to build the wall, while enormous, is not unimaginable. The imperial state exercised broad coercive power. It could conscript tens of thousands of peasants, deploy armies of prisoners, and punish those who resisted. Logistical records show the transport of grain, tools, and bricks to frontier sites. Suffering and death were part of this process, giving rise to stories of ghosts and revenge. But the scale of labor does not necessitate giants or alien machines. It reflects the organizational capacity of a large agrarian empire. By demystifying the wall's materials and construction, historians strip away the veil of supernatural speculation and honor the human toil embedded in its stones. Where believers see suppressed truths and lost civilizations, skeptics see a history of innovation, coercion, and adaptation. The Great Wall isn't one big mystery with a single answer. It's the result of different dynasties, different goals, and different moments in time. And the parts that look strange today, walls facing inward, unusual materials, aren't signs of a lost empire. They're signs that the wall was used for more than just defense. Rather than dismissing conspiracy outright, understanding the real story allows us to appreciate why myths arise. The wall's scale invites speculation, its gaps invite invention, and its endurance invites awe. When facts leave room for imagination, theories rush in. Some theories build on evidence, others leap into speculation. The Great Wall, with its huge scale and ambiguous features, provides fertile ground for thought experiments that explore the intersection of history, politics, and myth. One theory takes James C. Scott's argument seriously. It suggests that the wall wasn't built mainly for war, but for control. In this view, it marked a line between people the state could tax and manage, and those it couldn't. Gates were customs houses. Watchtowers were watchful eyes tracking sheep herds and merchants. The inward-facing crenellations were not ominous, but practical, allowing soldiers to suppress bandits, collect levies, and prevent mass flight during famine or rebellion. The wall allowed emperors to maintain a labor force in the heartland, ensuring a steady flow of grain and tax revenue. This theory also explains the Northern Line, a low wall built not to withstand cavalry charges, but to funnel herds through checkpoints. It views the wall as a giant border management system that prefigured modern passport control. Soldiers were not just warriors, they were tax collectors and census takers. The wall thus symbolized not only security, but also surveillance. It was a technology of governance, an infrastructure of extraction. This interpretation recasts the wall from a heroic defense project into a more ambiguous instrument of power. Critically, this theory still credits Chinese dynasties with the wall's construction. It suggests that if there is a hidden truth, it is not that another civilization built the wall, but that its purpose was more about controlling people than repelling them. It invites us to consider how states use infrastructure to shape human behavior, and how those being controlled might interpret that infrastructure as oppressive. By exploring this idea, we can empathize with both the rulers who sought stability and the subjects who bore the burden. Another theory steps back from the wall itself and looks at us. It suggests that the conspiracies and myths surrounding the wall are a mirror reflecting our own cultural anxieties. In an era of information overload and institutional mistrust, some people find comfort in believing that the official story is false and that they possess hidden knowledge. The Tartarian myth transforms a symbol of national pride into evidence of global cover-up. The inward-facing battlements become evidence of oppression. Sticky rice mortar becomes lost technology. In this theory, the wall is less a physical structure than a screen onto which we project fears of manipulation and fantasies of rebellion. The myth-making extends beyond fringe forums. Films and novels reimagine the wall as a barrier against dragons or zombies. Advertisements invoke its grandeur to sell everything from luxury cars to nationalist slogans. In each appropriation, the wall acquires new meanings. The Tartarian conspiracy, then, is just another story layered onto centuries of stories. It speaks to a hunger for wonder and a distrust of authority. It also reveals how easily architectural features can be misread when stripped of context. When we see crenellations facing south and call them proof of imprisonment, we impose our present-day fears onto ancient stones. Reflecting on this theory invites us to be humble about the stories we tell. The Great Wall teaches us that grand projects can serve multiple purposes, and that myths can arise from misinterpretations. The Great Wall has survived invasions, dynasties, revolutions, and centuries of neglect. What it hasn't survived is certainty. Every generation that encounters it sees something different reflected in its stones: a shield, a boundary, a warning, a prison, a marvel, a lie. And maybe that's the point. The wall doesn't offer us a single truth. It offers us a confrontation with scale, with what human societies are capable of building, enforcing, and justifying. It forces uncomfortable questions. How much control did ancient states really have? How much labor can be extracted when survival depends on obedience? And when history feels contradictory or incomplete, is the answer always a hidden hand? Or is it simply the result of messy, evolving power? Conspiracy theories don't emerge from nowhere. They grow in the gaps between records, in places where official explanations feel too clean for structures this vast. The inward-facing walls, the uneven construction, the conflicting purposes. These aren't proof of a lost empire, but they are proof that history isn't simple. And when complexity goes unexplained, imagination rushes in to fill the void. So the real mystery isn't whether the Great Wall hides a forgotten civilization beneath its foundations. The mystery is why we want it to. Why the idea of erased empires feels more believable than the reality of human endurance, coercion, and organization operating in the open. The wall still stretches across mountains and deserts, unchanged by the stories we tell about it. What changes is us. What do you think this structure was truly meant to do? Was it built by the Tartarian Empire? What does it represent today, and what other monuments or mysteries deserve a closer look? If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel. Like the video and drop your thoughts in the comments, and let me know what we should explore next. It helps the channel grow, and it means I can keep bringing you theories that change the way we see history and reality itself.